if I, as an architect, have a big ego and I'm still doing what I'm doing for my own purpose only, there's some many things to learn still. Funny enough, when I do that, then I will struggle. I remember that because I used to be like that. So when you do that, those are the kinds of struggles that you face. The client wants something else and you want something else. When you actually take it to the common sense and then you learn how to communicate it and you're honest with it, then it's very easy because the clients will actually understand and see you as an authority. Mm-hmm. And then
exactly.
they will respond to that. It comes down to a matter of responsibility, I would say. You don't blame the client, you be responsible and find the skills and develop the skills to be able to do that.
As you know, I have a very clear mission with Building Green. And I know so many brilliant architects, interior designers, and contractors who do too. But they're still stuck working on projects that drain them, with clients who don't value what they bring. That's why we founded Market Your Architecture a year ago. It's a marketing agency that helps mission-driven designers attract better clients, charge what they are worth, and finally build the kind of portfolio that reflects who they really are. If that sounds like the shift you need, there's a link in the description to marketyourarchitecture.com. And before we jump into the podcast, please rate and subscribe. It really helps me reach more people like you. In a world increasingly facing the challenges of climate change, with the Building Green podcast, we will dive deep into the intersection of architecture, design, urbanism, and environmental responsibility. I'm Ladina Schipf, your host. I've been an architect and building site manager for the past 10 years. During my studies at ETH in Switzerland, as well as in my working environment, I've had many touchpoints with sustainability, like many of you, I guess. I've also learned to question what I've been told, which is why I decided to go deeper into the topic and uncover what sustainability actually means. My mission is to highlight the transformative power of sustainable architecture, not just as a practice, but as a catalyst for broader societal change. Subscribe for more of our content and enjoy the show. You know how some people build just houses and others build entire worlds? My guest today, Armando Uribe, is the kind of person who looked at the real estate game, the flashy renderings, the numbers, the concrete, and said, this makes no sense. So he left it all behind, studied sustainable design in Australia, wandered through the world, and eventually landed here in the jungle of Tulum to completely reimagine what it means to build a home. In this conversation, we're sitting in the garden of one of those homes, deep in nature at 35 degrees heat, surrounded by mosquitoes, and it somehow felt peaceful. We talked about what went wrong in Tulum's rapid development, how he's protecting Mexico's ancient underground rivers with low-tech water systems, and why he believes architecture should feel more like a symphony than a spreadsheet. This episode is all about care for people, a place, and the planet. And if after this conversation you want to join us for the full house tour, that's going to be the next episode. Armando, why don't we start at the beginning?
What's that?
Tell me your story. How did you get where you are today, and why do you care so much about sustainability now?
Okay, well, when I was an architect in Mexico City. I studied architecture there, and after some time, after my studies, I worked with some architects that were well known in Mexico. But what we were doing is, from my feeling and my understanding then, even if I was not so experienced, was nonsense. I mean, I couldn't understand why that reality that we were living and producing as architects and builders was the best we could do. There was no relationship with humans. Really, it was more about the abstract aspect of design and architecture and construction and numbers and real estate and budgeting and all of it. But we never spoke about the feeling of people, how people would experience the spaces. No? But also, there was nothing, not a lot of information about nature, about how we relate to nature, which in a way is essential. Right? That's, if we want to live good lives, we are super connected to nature. We are nature somehow. So I embarked on a journey when I was 28 years old to leave that world and find answers. And I went to study a master's degree, sustainable design in Australia. That was something really obvious for me, like to study something around the topic of architecture and sustainability in a country that I heard then that it was already aligned with those principles and with well-being and nature. So I went there, and as I started to learned this information about sustainability, about how to integrate the sun, the wind, radiation, light, materials, the energy contained in materials as they are produced or as they are extracted and then become a door or a wall or anything in architecture. I also realized that the journey was also to the inside. Because as we read the world in a certain way, then we create from that mindset, from that kind of program that we inevitably have. And I think that's right now part of what we have discovered is that as we change our own program, as I change my own program and I find my position in this world, in the universe, in my life, as I understand the interconnectedness and the interdependence of my own life to everything and everyone, then what we create is already also based on that understanding. So it is not only about the building itself, because the building can be a beautiful building, but if there's no people enjoying, there's no life inside, then it might as well not exist. It might as well have stayed as a jungle in this case, or as a forest, So then after Australia, I continued my journey, studying and researching in different parts of Asia and New Zealand. Then I went to Barcelona, studied a program called Laboratorio de la Vivienda del Siglo XXI, which was more about the multidisciplinary aspect of a city and how a city is built and how homes are the main cell of the city. 90% of the city are homes. So that's what I did, and then I continued. I came back to Mexico, continued doing research and working for a university. I worked for a university and created a program called Sustainable Architecture, and continued doing research. And I loved to know that there was more possibilities and more options. But then at some point I decided to become an entrepreneur and become a businessman, and because I knew that was the way to ground the ideas faster and better, instead of just keeping it in the imaginative realm. Most of the academia is like that. So that's where 10 years ago, I started doing some real estate. I had done some real estate in the past in Mexico City, but formally, 10 years I started my business here, my office, and since then we have been doing projects that are examples of how we can apply those principles and create new meanings and new realities.
That's so interesting. You really traveled across the world to learn from the best and bring it back here into the place that's most connected to nature. We're in the middle of the jungle. And so then you founded Pura Tulum, and you built this complex here. Complex is a really bad word. But can you tell me more about what Pura Tulum is and the mission behind it?
Well, after a couple of examples, a couple of other projects that we created here, where we started applying the principles, as I told you, Pura was the third project, and I already had learned a few things that I wanted to continue doing and refine, and some others that I didn't want to do anymore. So when we started Pura, we started thinking of how do we keep the nature that is already present in this land, that we're gifted to transform into homes, how do we keep it alive? And what are the deep processes that are going on there? And in reality, it really is not that difficult. If you come with an open heart, with an open mind, and start to understand that there are several things, and several events and dynamics and processes and patterns that are happening here in terms of nature, and you become open to learn from them, to learn how they are actually, how they manifest, how the light moves, how the sun moves, how the wind flows, all the species that are contained here. It's amazing how much information there is in one piece of land. In the soil alone, I think that's really one of the stories that I love the most, and the more I understand it, the more fascinating it becomes to me. Because the soil, as we keep it alive, meaning the black soil that we have around the homes, there are more beings in a tablespoon of soil than humans in the whole planet. So the exchange of information of molecules and nutrients and vitamins and minerals and everything is just fascinating. So that in itself, also with the trees and the birds and everything, because it's really not separate, is something that makes us feel good. That kind of brings down the nervousness and calms down our nervous systems and gives so many good qualities to our bodies and our minds. So that it was something very clear. Like we wanted to learn how to weave the homes in between the nature and the trees and the soil and everything that we learned was present in this place. So it's only 33% occupation. The rest is nature. When the regulation is actually allowing more. And also we respected the regulation. The regulation is H2, so it's only 12 structures per hectare. As you can see around, there's many people did not respect that. There was a process, and there was a corrupt process, I would call it, because the government was only thinking and caring about money. So they would allow people to break the rules by paying. So you can see buildings that are 80 units, 60 units. But in Pura, we knew we wanted to keep it under the regulation and then do our thing and prove that as we do that, we keep higher value than other properties. And now there are several examples that we have, we can talk about that are concrete proof that this has kept higher value than other properties that have destroyed the actual field that they found. And they are more like just square meters, death, spiritless square meters. So people value, as they come to Tulum, people who come to Tulum, I think are looking for that. Most of the people that come here are looking for that connection to nature and to self. And so if you come to stay in a condo, then it's hard to connect to that.
When did you build the first house?
3 years ago, we finished the first house.
Okay. And how many have you built since?
5.
5, okay.
5, and we're about to refurbish one. And 2 owners of the 5 homes that we have built have bought the land right next. So it's even lowering the density more. So as we continue, as Tulum continues to develop, as Region 15 continues to develop, which is a region that is very well located, it's a few minutes to the ocean, a few minutes to the town, a few minutes to Aldea Sama. The more there's development, the more this place is going to contrast. Because it's going to be kept as a sanctuary, as a natural sanctuary. And you can feel it, you can hear the peace, the nature, even the heat. We're in the middle of August, but you can feel that there's something healthy. And as you are here, as you spend time here.
Yeah, and you can really feel, I know how close we are to the town, and we all can feel this kind of pressure of a lot of developments going on and a lot of growth, which feels not really nice when you're in the middle of the jungle. But right here, you really feel like in an oasis. You only see trees.
Yeah.
You have no idea what's going on outside.
Exactly. That's the feeling, and that's what we envisioned, a lot, when we started visiting the land. We bought the land to really good friends of mine and I 15 years ago. And as we started coming, because the first years we couldn't even step on the land, there was no roads. So we bought it from the sky, we bought it from the plane, and we actually flew a little plane, and the guy who sold us the land showed us the land from the top. And after many years, after almost 7 years, we couldn't step on the land. So as we started coming, telling you my background, I was always sensitive about it. I was always excited about finding those elements and those it's kind of a music, really. You can sing, it's thinking like that. You can think it as a multidimensional symphony, because it's sound, it's smell, it's taste, it's the feeling of being in a place. So as we discovered that, then we started envisioning these homes that are kind of like woven, with these natural elements that are here. And I think a very important thing for me to share is that as I said before, as we want to create something meaningful and healthy, we also have been polishing a lot the relationships that we have nurtured and created. Because Also in terms of real estate normally here is like you create the property and then you deliver the property and then you become like the bad guy because there's things to fix, and the developers normally they want to leave as soon as possible, you know. And for us, we have stayed. We are here, and we are actually evolving the relationship with the owners of different homes. They're all our friends, and I mean, as I told you, now they're actually excited of refurbishing their house. So as we build the connections to nature, we also build the connections in between the community or the owners of lands. At the end, we're all stories, you know, and we are living our lives, and we all dream of living our lives at fullest potential, right? So this is a group of people that are meeting in this beautiful space, and we're sharing this project. So this is also a really innovative aspect of the project. As we learn, we correct instead of just doing something and leaving, which was, again, the game of the previous developers, let's say, that they had this idea of extracting ROI fast. Mm-hmm. So when that is in your mind, it's very difficult to really care, because some things take more time than your two-year plan. So if we stay and we find a way to stay as we're doing, then we can continue evolving. And as we continue doing that, people feel it, owners feel it, visitors feel it, and the value raises. So that's the right way to do real estate, I would say, in these moments, no? In this kind of crisis that we're living.
So you say, as an architect, you really see the difference between working with professional developers, investors that know how to make money fast versus the homeowners that first buy the house for themselves and then sometimes rent it out just to cover the time that they're not here, from the architect's perspective?
Well, yeah, I believe that, I don't believe, I know now, because we have proved it here, that as we continue doing what we're doing, the real value of the properties is increasing or stabilizing. Because it also depends on the market. No? In a moment in Tulum where there's thousands of units that are empty, because mostly were done by that other game, I call it, the previous real estate paradigm, which is, I'm going to do my plan, my financial plan. I'm going to create a ROI in paper. I'm going to design something that makes sense with that. I'm going to call it whatever. I'm going to design something that looks beautiful. But again, that game is not about the actual experience of the people who are going to stay, the nature that is going to be kept alive throughout the life of the project, beyond our lifetimes. So it's a really, really big shift in the way you think a project. And that old method, still being played, is proved also not to be profitable, which is what's amazing. When we started in Tulum, everyone was playing under that illusion. And since Tulum is such a beautiful place, it offers so much. You have the ocean, the lagoons, you have the natural reserve, the park, the ruins. The whole peninsula, I think, is one of the most special places on earth. So everyone was attracted to that, and everyone was happy to be part of the project, buy something and make money out of it. But guess what? It didn't happen. It only happened for a few years, but then it got saturated, you know. So I guess now is the time when projects like that, like Pura, are really contrasting that previous illusion that has also proved not to be right. So I think it's a great moment to continue doing these kinds of projects. I am excited about what we're starting, because we're continuing. I think that even though there are many buildings, there are still very few homes that really are made with care and with love, and thinking about the experience of the people. Which in a way is similar as value. Like when I sometimes think of this, I like to think of restaurants, you know, and restaurants, I think what the essence of a restaurant or the way it starts is mostly because they care about sharing their beautiful dishes and their culinary experiences with people, right? And then you can make money out of it. But it's not the other way around. You don't make a restaurant to make money fast in 2 years. So for some reason, the real estate market or the real estate industry became like that for several decades. But I think now it's time to change the game.
I love how you differentiate between buildings and homes.
Yes.
That's so beautiful. And I really want to talk more about Pura, the projects, construction methods, everything you learned, how everything has developed. But I want to pick up something that you said about the development. So Tulum 20 years ago was like a little town in the jungle, very influenced as well by the Mayans, right? And now it has an international airport, a huge train going across the Yucatan or connecting all those Mayan treasures, let's say. What do you think in this development that's happening right now, or in this fast development that's happened up until now, what do you think went right and what went wrong?
One thing that I really love about Tulum is the fact that it is, as you said, it's a place that has held ancient cultures alive. You know? There's a presence of humans for thousands of years, of a culture that it's really attractive to me personally, but for many people too, because they were artists, they were great architects, they were measurers of time, astronomers. They knew about agriculture, about the rhythms of agriculture, and how that related to the rain and the movement of the sun and the moon. So I really find this place fascinating because of that as a base. But then as people from all over the world started to come and started to enjoy that magic that the place offers, now the place has become even more amazing. Mostly because of that, because of the kind of people that come, that are mostly adventurers, explorers of the outside world, but also explorers of the inside world. And I mean, you know, you can see it as a superficial or as a deep situation. It depends really on every one of us as how deep can we go in our exploration of the place, how deep can we go in the exploration of our own selves or in relationships as we continue to evolve the way we relate. But Tulum is a great experiment that now has 100 and something, 144 nationalities living and cohabiting and co-creating the place as we live our lives and as we create our businesses and as we continue imagining new possibilities. I think that's one of the things, or probably the most amazing aspect of Tulum. I really love Tulum. When I lived in Sydney and I live in Barcelona, and as you know, I traveled a lot to the world. And when there are places that have that level of energy, that intensity of energy of people exchanging and co-creating and sharing their lives, you can feel it. There's an intensity. Like Barcelona then, or like Sydney then. The two cases were the same. People were coming from all over the world, wanting to live in the place, wanting to rent the place. So Tulum has that. On and off, you know, sometimes there's more people, sometimes there's less people. Every year is different. Now there's more people staying. Together with that, there's an infrastructure that comes from the federal government that I feel is very intelligent. I feel that they have been doing great things in the last few years. I think the airport is good in general. We have mobility, we have close relationships with different parts of the world, including all the countries in Europe and the US and Mexico. Also the train, I think, is a great thing to do. Many people have criticized it, and you can criticize the speed and whatever. But if it's managed right, if it's a long time process, it's good for the mobility of the region. Instead of moving ourselves in cars, to be able to jump on a train and visit all these beautiful towns, it's going to create a certain interconnected dynamic within the Yucatan Peninsula. And also the national park that has been kind of remodeled and changed and kind of settled as a park. It's 3 times the size of Manhattan Park, Central Park, you know. And it holds the ruins and new areas and a lot of raw nature. So I think that's a big statement in Tulum, that whatever is happening and whatever sometimes it goes in the wrong direction or sometimes it gets a little bit more disorganized. You know? I think it's a natural process of a Latin American city also. You know? In general, I think it has a lot of potential to become or continue to become a wonderful place to be, to live, to make life happen, no, for all of us. But I think it's up to us. It's in our hands to continue doing so. In the hands of mostly the people, the entrepreneurs, the business people, and the people who are deciding to create something meaningful here. Local governments, I think, are still very disorganized, and they're still playing the old game. They still like coming out from that level of understanding that where the territories are about making business, short business for them and their friends. That happens a lot. There is corruption also in the police. And also, this wave, as we were talking, of real estate that happened too fast, linked to these corrupt processes, to these illegal but accepted processes where the government, local government, just made money by accepting money, by letting developers to destroy the actual plan. They went over the regulations over and over and over again. So now I think in that case, Tulum is suffering somehow. There's a lot of dead space, and that is from the urban perspective is a kind of a cancer, a kind of a disease that we have to correct. I believe there are many processes to do so, mostly refurbishing those places and bringing them to become homes and not just space. It's a time to reinvent the spaces that we already have and maybe not build more and more and more. We can talk about that a little bit later, but I think those are the challenges as well. It's time to reinvent the place. And I think every city has gone through that list. Barcelona is a great case. At some point it was really low. It was not in the best conditions. And after the Olympic Games, with that energy that came and that amount of capital and resources, they again gave it a new life, and it's still going somehow. In New York also, I remember when I was a kid, it was known as a really fast and hectic and unsafe city. And now you go and it's amazing what they have been doing. So always a place can reinvent itself. Tulum is new, it's a new city. But I think it's gone to that point fast. And it's time to rethink where we're heading and how we're doing it. And it's mostly in the hands of as many people involved as possible. Government involved, entrepreneurs involved. And that, together with the fact that the real estate business is now not thriving. Now it has proved to be not only detrimental for the society and for the community and for the nature, for what is valuable for all of us, but also for the same developers. They're suffering now. They're not making money, they're not renting. So now it's time to open the eyes and create valuable things. So all in all, that's how I see Tulum. I see beautiful decades ahead, but it's mostly, the question is how much consciousness can we have and how much are we daring to dive into that new adventure? Because it definitely it has to do with how we are able to test our own mindset and go sometimes against what gives us security. Because the idea of making money fast might be something that gives you security. But if it is not that, then you have to really get rid of that program and create a new way of doing things.
Just a quick reality check. If you're constantly over-delivering, working around the clock, and still chasing the right kind of projects, you're not alone. I keep meeting architects, interior designers, and contractors in that exact cycle, which is actually why we started Market Your Architecture. We help you reposition your work and get in front of more of the right people, so you can finally choose who you want to work with. If that sounds interesting to you and you want to know more about us, you'll find the link to marketyourarchitecture.com in the description. One thing that I also want to really raise awareness, I think there's so much misconception around sustainability. There is a lot of activists shouting, which also provokes some kind of, I'm either fully agree with the activists, or I fully don't. And I think there's so much in between, like little things that you can do as a homeowner when you plan a home. Where do you place the windows? What materials do you put in? Things that a lot of people are not aware of that have a big impact, without saying I'm a full activist or I don't care about sustainability. So I really want to through these nice conversations about architecture. I mean, who doesn't want to talk about architecture, right?
It's fun.
Get a bit more behind what options do we have, especially what I've realized now, especially in the high-end market. Because one question that I want to talk about with you again also is how much does the more sustainable aspect of the development have to come top down from the government with regulations, subsidies, whatsoever, and how much should come bottom up from the homeowners who can afford it, who are informed, because I think education is one of the most important aspects of all of this.
Yeah.
How do you see the balance there in a place like Tulum?
I mean, I do believe that education is, you say, it's one of the most important. I think it's probably the most important of all. Because every time that someone has an opportunity to transform a place or create a house, which is kind of the same thing, you have a land or you have a built place and you're going to transform it into something. No? Whenever you have the opportunity to do that, there are a few choices that have to be taken. And I've observed that even here in Tulum, and I would say in the world in general, many of the architects that are deciding and designing, they don't know. They don't care, because knowing is extremely easy. If you're going to be in a place, if you study a little bit about the wind and the sun and what the climate is and what the challenges of the climate is, the mosquitoes, the hurricanes, the rain, the heat in this case, no? In the case of the jungle. There are 2 or 3 things that are very easy principles that you can understand. And as you mentioned, like the position of the orientation and the position of the house relative to the movement of the sun, the orientation and the position of the house and the windows relative to the wind flow, because in these cases we're close to the ocean. The pattern of the wind is very simple to read. Like it only comes from one zone, let's say, that comes from the ocean, and then it goes through the homes and continues its way. And also a few little details about kinds of materials, colors. Lifting the homes in this case, for example, makes a big difference, because in this wind going through and under the homes, and the heat that is kept, whatever heat is kept in the space can actually be dissipated. But every place in the world has its own conditions. Like if you go to the desert, for example, the principles are completely different. If you go to temperate areas, if you go to the Mediterranean, anywhere you go, really, the snow has its own principles. And the amazing thing about that is that when you observe architecture that was created in these places previous to the modern times, where there were no electricity, no air conditioning, or no heating systems, they needed to do it with a structure. So you have a lot of answers there. The principles are there. The expression and the methodology and the technology is different now. So answering your first question it's very simple, very simple to take 2 or 3 decisions in your design and then stick to them and not let your superficial mind to take over as you are creating the house. Ask your architect to do that, you know. Because they know, and if they don't know, it would be easy for them to know. There's already so much technology, so much software also to read the patterns fast, to understand where the sun is. So now it's easier than ever before to be able to do that. Previously, people would observe for years, no, in order to understand that. Now it's a seeing. It's with a click you understand. So that's the first thing. And then, of course, there is a few things that are related to technology that might become a little bit more expensive, like the solar energies or water treatment systems that kind of have or need a certain level of technology to kind of work together with the passive principles that we just described, that are more timeless and traditional in essence. But it doesn't necessarily has to be more expensive. The cost of the house is related to the choices that you make in terms of what kind of materials you use, what kind of appliances and technologies you use. But the basic principles of sustainability, you can build a hut and be sustainable, and you can build a palace and be sustainable too. And then, of course, what you mentioned about the government, I do believe that it helps when governments are actually contributing to that and regulating that, like in other countries, no? Mexico, I think it's really, really behind, and Tulum, totally way more behind still, because there's even less organization here than everywhere in Mexico. It's the youngest state, it's the youngest municipality, so it's still kind of getting organized. It's the jungle, it's wild, but it would definitely be helpful to have some principles, basic principles, so that people, when they come, they have to cope with that regulation. But if you think of a moment where even they're not even able to keep the volume and the density in line because they want money, and because that process is still stable in this region, then I think we still have a far way to go in order for the government to also regulate the more sophisticated aspects that we mentioned. But that's why I believe that it is mostly in the hands of the developers. I've always been dreaming of a platform, of a place or a movement where even if the government is not going to regulate, we are able to do it. And now we have proved that that is more valuable. So I think this is the perfect moment to start having these conversations, and then creating a group of developers who stick to those principles and then see the results and enjoy the results also. No?
I think that's a really good point that you just made, because from my experience, also now you know that I run a marketing agency with architects or for architects, and I speak to many of them, and I see some kind of tendency of architects or designers, instead of taking ownership for the project, they tend to blame clients for where the project ended up. And I think what I learned as well from turning more towards the business side, moving away from architecture, is the whole concept of sales and how do you really sell your idea. And I think that is where the architects have a responsibility of saying, hey, I'm informed, I know that these are the materials or the passive principles that we need to implement, and learn your way to sell it to the client so that he understands the benefit of it, and not just giving him the ownership of the project.
I completely agree with you, yes. And I think it's the art of knowing how to be responsible at the end of the day as an architect. The thing is that if architects, I think that happened a lot also in the industry, in architecture, there's even a word, no? Starchitects. Offices that went all over the world and started to create projects all over the world. I mean, that by itself, I don't see a problem. But what I mean by this is that if I, as an architect, have a big ego, and I'm still doing what I'm doing for my own purpose only, there's some many things to learn still. And funny enough, when I do that, then I will struggle. I remember that because I used to be like that. So when you do that, those are the kinds of struggles that you face. The client wants something else, and you want something else. But when you actually take it to the common sense, and then you learn how to communicate it, and you're honest with it, then it's very easy, because the clients will actually understand and see you as an authority, and then
exactly.
they will respond to that. So that's something that we as architects have to learn, have to be responsible, because we have a big responsibility in front of us with the owners, but also with the world, because every building that we build impacts in so many ways, right? Not only the place, but also where the materials come from, the families. It impacts for generations. So it comes down to a matter of responsibility, I would say. You don't blame the client, you be responsible and find the skills and develop the skills to be able to do that. But I think most of all, it's about caring. Because if I really do it through care, then I feel way more powerful. When it was like lack of confidence or lack of care or lack of capacity to see that impact, then yes, then I felt struggles. Now it's time to continue doing it as fast and as much as possible. Because it's time to set up the new examples of how to come back to the senses, come back to be responsible, and enjoy, our creations and let them create the impact that they're imagined to create. We can do good. This is the thing. Like most of what has built in the last few decades has created negative impacts in ecosystems, in communities. We were playing and we didn't know, and then we got so greedy about it because it was producing a lot of money for us. But now it's time to change the game. Now it's time to change the whole system. The whole economic system, I think, has to rebalance, and doing real estate and doing architecture is, as any other industry, I would say, is a great opportunity to start transforming the game.
I want to change scale. You talked about caring. We should also care about the sea. Tulum is very known for its white beaches, and right now it's completely the opposite.
Yeah.
It's covered with a brown algae called sargasso.
Mm-hmm.
Where does this sargasso come from, and what could be the impact of the climate change or our developments here?
I don't know much about it, much about sargasso, but I also believe that no one really knows much about sargasso. We're still finding out what's really going on. And what I understand so far is that there's a place called the Sea of Sargasso, I think closer to the coast of Brazil. And in previous years, sargasso kind of stayed there, and only part of it came because there were currents. Mm-hmm. So some currents, when I came here 10 years ago, there was some season of sargasso, but the sargasso was more like this mild thing that came and floated, and it was even beautiful to see, combined with that kind of brownish reddish color together with the beautiful turquoise and water and white sands. No? But eventually, 3 years ago, there was a time when actually the amount was extreme. So it came and it was like it covered the whole beaches, and it changed the color of the water for some time. And this year has been the worst of all. 2025, it's just amazing how much sargasso has come. What I understand is that, again, those currents changed, and together with the water that comes down from the rivers in Brazil, in the Amazon, that are sometimes are polluted, I think that has contributed. I think this is one of these global dynamics that is there's not only one cause, several things combined of our own activities that are actually producing that. What I feel as an opportunity and as a possibility is to manage it, because to stop it, I think I'm not sure that it's possible. It might be something that has to happen far away and in different places in different country. Still, we don't have the full information about it, full knowledge, but what we can do is to manage it here, as they have been doing it in Puerto Morelos. Puerto Morelos is the only place in the whole Riviera Maya that took action. And they have a program now, and they have nets on the ocean, and they have a system of boats. So they are managing it, because if the sargasso doesn't arrive to the beach, then it doesn't rot. And if it doesn't rot, I think you can use it as a resource, as a natural resource for so many things, Also, they're doing, for example, construction with hemp. They're doing construction with bamboo fibers and different kinds of fibers. So also material technology can help us to kind of use that material. Also, it's organic matter, so that it can also contribute to regenerate soils that have been destroyed. There's many things that we can do with that resource. But in terms of the experience on the beach, there are possibilities. They are doing it already, and it's not arriving to the beach. It's just like in that case, it's only 2 kilometers. Tulum, it's like altogether, it's about 16 kilometers. So, but I think we have to take action. This is the last year, from my perspective, that we missed the point, and the government needs to really take action and do something about it, manage it. And as I said, like the global dynamics that actually is producing or bringing the sargasso now to here, I think it's something that is part of many other things that are happening in the world, like the floods and the fires and all these things that we have been experiencing lately in a bigger scale. It's really literally linked to this system that we're still holding, that it's about extraction and destruction and extraction and destruction and changing the balance, the natural balance of a place. And what's amazing for me, Ladina, is that sustainability, I mean, it has been used also in so many ways, and it can, from my perspective, has lost its meaning. But if we really go back to its essence, it's about sustaining our life here. And we can definitely sustain our life here by changing our point of views, by changing our patterns, by starting to do the experiments needed in order to come back to our senses, really, to come back to what will continue ourselves to play with the universe, play with nature, but in a responsible way, in a way that we don't destroy it, that we enhance it. So there's a lot of education, I think, that needs to happen. And I mean, there's still a lot of people that are distracted and playing that other game of destruction. But I mean, I'm confident that as we continue doing what we're doing and we make alliances with people like you, that it's also spreading the word. I think that now we have that opportunity, right, to communicate and let that message move around the world in ways that it was impossible before. So I think we have to do it, and we have to do it fast, and we can enjoy the process. No? So at least I'm one of those that choose to be part of the new thing, and explore, because it's always an exploration. No?
And there is another thing that I want to talk about that's very special here, the cenotes. It's like this ecosystem, right? The underwater river that connects all the cenotes, which is also the irrigation system or part of the irrigation system of the jungle. Can you tell me a bit more about how it works? And then later on, I want to go into how the development has impacted those cenotes.
Well, the cenotes are also an amazing phenomenon, unique of this region, for several geological processes that have happened in this peninsula. The whole peninsula is a kind of like you can imagine it as a Gruyere cheese. That is either solid or hollow. The whole peninsula, it's one rock. It's carbonate calcium. It's fossils, basically it's a sedimentary rock. Of fossils of millions of years of formation, So, so in these holes, in these hollow spaces underneath, there are like really networks, channels in different levels. You can imagine at different levels and different spaces. Sometimes they're exposed in the surface, sometimes they're deep underground, but it's hundreds of kilometers also of a network of interconnected channels of water. So as the water comes in and as the water comes down when it rains, all this water is pristine. It's really rich in quality and in minerals, and I mean you can I wouldn't say that you would drink it literally, but it's almost drinkable straight from the cenotes. No? So that's also amazing to be in a place where there's so much drinkable water or clean water. It's amazing of this region. What I understand is that in previous ages, when there was no fast development, people used to do things called fossa septica, which was a very rudimentary technology. It was basically a hole on the ground, and all the black water from WCs and kitchen were actually thrown in this box. And eventually, after years and years and years, I mean, as this kind of processes itself and it continues to process itself, eventually at some point it will actually fill, or not, or continue to kind of be filtered on the ground. But now that we're so many people in this region, that it's impossible to think as a possibility. I mean, it's people.
Imagine.
Imagine that.
Imagine the smell here.
No. So, but there are beautiful alternatives. I mean, Tulum has a percentage of the territory is covered already with a conventional sewage system, which is also questionable, I would say. I mean, the way it works, because when you understand that there are other easier technologies to actually clean the water and bring it back to its healthy state, let's say. In Pura, we have done it in all these homes. We have two different kinds of systems designed by a really good engineer called Fernando Fernandez, an environmental engineer who has been doing this for 15 years. And it's really low tech, but it's emulating the way the water is cleared in natural systems like mangroves, for example. There are bacteria in the system. And
how does it work?
You basically bring the water out. You pass it through a sedimentary tank, so that the thickest part of it goes with sediments, and then the water continues its way, its path through a system that is basically a system filled with rocks, let's say, hollow rocks, where millions of bacteria get established, colonies of bacteria get established there, together with the roots of the plants. That water, as it goes through a system it has to be well designed, and there is of course an engineering behind. The water, as it passes, it cleans itself, and the bacteria eat the pathological aspects of the matter. So as the water comes out from the system, it comes clean. It's clean enough to be used for gardening. So it's very easy also to do it. And so I would say that every developer, every building should do that as a must, I would say. And then if the drainage is also there, maybe you can also connect to the drainage or use both systems. No? But I think I really question the centralized systems, because imagine how much expensive it is for the city to actually bring the sewage everywhere in the place, whereas we could have it in a more localized way. Maybe not every house, maybe every certain groups of houses, but again, it's an area of exploration and of experimentation. And the good thing is that the technologies are very easy to apply if they're designed right. They're very easy to maintain, and you become responsible in your own place instead of just letting whatever you're producing as waste out to who knows where. I think in general it's the same with garbage, with water, with everything. We are not conscious about where things come from and where they go, right? You just go to the supermarket, buy a thing, and we really live in a society of consumption. We are disconnected from the processes. So water is no exception. And in a way it's easier here because we know about what you just said. It's the cenotes underneath, and those are our source of water, and we enjoy the cenotes also as a way to clean ourselves and as a way to enjoy a beautiful day out there. So I don't have data enough, and I don't think that people have enough data to understand how bad it has impacted the actual construction industry so far in Tulum. But again, I think it's more about what we can do from now on, like be responsible every time that we are in the opportunity of creating or transforming a place. It's easy, it's fun, it's beautiful. So I think there's no pretext. It's more about not wanting to do it. It's a matter of choosing. And as you choose to do something, you start caring more. And as you know more, you care more. So that's a process that I believe we as collaborators and other people can ignite.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice you would give a developer thinking about investing right now in Tulum or in a similar place on the earth?
Well, as I said, when I think of development or architecture or construction, whatever you want to call it, which is in essence is the opportunity to transform a place. And why not make money out of it? Like, we all need money and we all like money, and we all sell our services and our knowledge and our products, no? And I think that's going to continue. That's great. But if you're going to do it, again, I come back to the care. Like, how much do you really care about the quality and the qualities and the impact that you are going to create as you do that transformation? Enjoy it. Dare to do it, most of all, because all the information is there. Like, we have everything at our hand to produce a great outcome, and it's about also really exploring the place and taking the time to know it. Sometimes, or most of the time in real estate projects, since it became a financial deal only, the process that happens when the project is actually developed and transformed, it's very fragmented. You hire an architect, the architect sometimes, they're not even here, they are in Guadalajara or wherever, or sometimes they're here but they're in pressure because they have to finish fast. So that's the game, like pressure this guy, because we need to do this fast as possible. And if that's going to get the place disconnected from its own essence, and if that's not going to produce any valuable experience for the people, then you're missing the point. And as an advice is to care, to dare to jump into some field that you might not know, and try to feel the responsibility that you have and be responsible with it. And have fun with it and learn to make money out of it as well. Because it is possible. I love to make money. I love business, the business side of this as well. It came after for me. I was a creative. I am still a creative. But if you master the game of business together with creativity, that's where it really becomes a possibility and a grounded, materialized possibility.
That's a beautiful ending. I want to move on to do a quick house tour where we look at how you dealt with ventilation or cross-ventilation, orientation, materials and all that.
Okay.
But that's going to be a second part. So
Perfect.
First, for all of those listening to this first part, if they want to follow your work, where can they find you?
Well, I can give you all the information on my platforms. It's weave.mx.
Okay.
That's my webpage, and I can also give you my Instagram of Pura and of Weave as well, so that they can know where to find me.
Okay,
Yes?
I'll link everything in the description so they can reach out. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Armando. This has been super interesting.
Thank you also, Lalina. It's been amazing.
A huge thank you for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you listen to the podcast to support me and so you don't miss an episode. And while you're there, I'd also be so grateful if you could rate and review us. If you have any guest suggestions or any feedback, you can find me on the socials at LatinaShip. Thanks.